and welcome to the opening broadcast of the Faceoff. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Faceoff. My name is Graham Jenkins. I'm your host. Faceoff is KXSC's hour-long weekly hockey talk show. Coming up later on this show, the Canucks are off into a gigantic goaltender mess. A Bruins fan throws a hot dog onto the ice. And what is the deal with the Washington Capitals? But let's begin with the Vancouver Canucks, and more importantly, Roberto Luongo. So over the last, one of the most dominant stories of the offseason, aside from the looming lockout that did happen and eventually got fixed, probably the biggest story was whether or not the Canucks would trade Roberto Luongo. There were lots of rumors involving Luongo over the past year, largely stemming from his subpar performance in the 2012 Stanley Cup playoffs and the emergence of backup goaltender Cory Schneider. One of the teams that's been involved throughout all these talks is the Toronto Maple Leafs, and well, they've been in search for a goaltender for quite a while. Let's be real here. Other teams that have come up are the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers and Philadelphia Flyers. Of those teams, the Oilers could use a steady goaltender if Dubnyk doesn't work out. The Panthers are a little bit of a wild card, though, because their goaltender right now, Jose Theodore, is 37 years old and approaching the end of his contract is expiring this season. And the Panthers, may want a younger goaltender, and as Luongo is 33, approaching 34, and they could get back the player they traded in 2006. Now, the Flyers, I'm not sure why they're involved in these talks, because they've been involved in numerous trades that have, as a result, completely changed the landscape of the team. The first trade being the Mike Richards trade, in which sent Mike Richards, their captain at the time, to the Los Angeles Kings, and also their trade of Jeff Carter, another one of their prominent scorers, to the Columbus Blue Jackets. And they have a solid goaltender right now in Ilya Bryzgalov, and if they want to get Luongo, they're going to have to completely blow up their team again to get him. So it's not really likely that they're going to do that. Now, in the 2012 playoffs, Luongo had a pretty decent regular season. But in the playoffs, that's where it all started to go wrong for him. In the first round against the Kings, Luongo posted an .891 save percentage and a .359 goals against average in 117 minutes of play. Out of 64 shots he faced, 7 went to the net. And now in that same series, Alain Vigneault, the head coach of the Canucks, pulled Roberto Luongo and started Cory Schneider for 3 games. And he sported a spectacular .960 save percentage and a .131 goals against average. He faced 101 shots and only allowed 4 of them to go in. The Canucks did lose that series, but Schneider looked stellar in that series. If only the Canucks got some offense against the Kings. Now, based on Schneider's performance against the Kings and based on his performance in the series against the Kings and in the 5 games he replaced Roberto Luongo with, the Canucks felt they may have their future goaltender in Schneider and not Luongo. In the 5 games that Schneider played in 2011, because Luongo was pulled 5 games in the playoffs in 2011. Schneider faced 82 shots and saved 75 of them for statistics of 915 save percentage and a .258 goals against average. Now, the main problem with why Roberto Luongo hasn't been traded yet is because nobody wants to take on his salary. Before the 2009 season, Roberto Luongo and Canucks general manager Mike Gillis signed a heavily front-loaded contract worth $64 million over 12 years. First year of this contract paid him $10 million. The next 7 years of his contract pay him over $6.7 million. And then in 2008, the payment started to substantially decrease, $3.4 million in 2018. 2019, it's half of that, $1.6 million. And then finally, to finish out his career in 2022, he will earn $1.0 million per season for 2 years. Now, over 12 years, that's a cap hit of $5.3 million, which is the average amount of money that he's going to make per season over 12 years. And teams likely aren't wanting to take that much salary per year. Now, of course, this contract was designed to have Luongo stay long-term for the Canucks, except throughout the offseason, after 2012, the word from Vancouver was that they would try to trade him to somewhere else. Well, Now the Canucks have an even bigger problem. Cory Schneider. Over the offseason, Cory Schneider signed a 3-year, $12 million contract that's backloaded. He will make $3.5 million this year, $4 million the next season, and $4.5 million the season after the next one, 2 years from now. This suggests that the Canucks want to make Schneider the long-term goaltender, but they want to keep him under team control and see if he's worth giving a 5-year, 6-year, 7-year deal, or perhaps the max term under the new CBA, 8 years, to see if he's worth it, if he's the real deal, let's say, or if they don't like what they see in 3 years, they're probably just going to let him walk. Now, the Canucks right now are paying an average of $9.3 million for 2 goaltenders. Their entire payroll for the season is $69.3 million, which is the highest payroll in the NHL. The salary cap is at $70 million this season, and it's going to be even more troublesome for them because the cap is not going to be that high in the next season. It's going to be at $64.3 million. For all intents and purposes, though, Schneider was set to be the starting goaltender for the Canucks. And then the season started, and it's been kind of a rocky one for Cory Schneider. In the opening game against the Anaheim Ducks at home, Schneider was pulled in the middle of the second period after allowing 5 goals on 14 shots. Luongo took over for the rest of the game and made 10 saves on 12 shots. The next day, Luongo got the start, and the Canucks did lose that game in the shootout to the Oilers, but Luongo saved 30 shots he saved 30 shots and allowed 2 goals. Except after that performance, the Canucks remained committed to keeping Schneider the starting goaltender, and for the next 3 games, Schneider got a win against the Calgary Flames in a shootout, saving 34 saves against 36 shots. He got revenge against the Anaheim Ducks for completely ruining his starting debut, shutting them out 5-0 while stopping 30 shots. But then he allowed 4 goals on 27 shots to the San Jose Sharks in a 4-1 loss, and he hasn't started since January 27th when that game was. Luongo started every game for the Canucks since January 27th and has been, I would say, problematically dominant for the Canucks. While the Canucks lost 3-2 in the shootout to the Kings in their first start after January 27th, Luongo made 26 saves on 28 shots. Then he shut out the Colorado Avalanche, stopping 24 shots, and then he beat the Blackhawks in the shootout, one of the Blackhawks' only 2 shootout losses on the season, February 1st, making 27 saves in the process in a 2-1 shootout win. Now, this is really great for Roberto Luongo, but it's a huge problem for the Canucks, and it's rather embarrassing. When the goaltender, heavily rumored in trade talks throughout the offseason and perhaps a little bit towards the beginning of this season, when that goaltender is outperforming the goaltender you have publicly stated will start, it's a major conundrum for the team. GM Mike Gillis can ask Alain Vigneault, the coach, why he's making his job harder all he wants. But remember who signed that contract? Mike Gillis. And you got to remember what Alain Vigneault's job is to do as the head coach, which is to put together the best lineup he can to ensure the team wins every game or has the best chance of winning. And right now, Luongo is giving the Canucks their best chance to win. Now, what do you do if you're the Canucks? Do you trade the goaltender who's playing well and winning games for you? Who wants to take on that much salary? What do you do with Schneider if he doesn't perform? You've got him locked up for the next 3 years. With that salary cap, as I mentioned earlier, coming down to $64.3 million per season, or $64.3 million next season, what happens to the Canucks as a whole? They have to find a way to shed salary between now and next season to stay below the cap ceiling, or they're going to be heavily penalized. They can't commit that much money to goaltending and expect to have the rest of the team remain competitive.